2 games in and Ipswich Town top the championship. Can we stay there following a trip down to the capital? We'll find out soon. This is the Blue Monday podcast. Hello and welcome to the Blue Monday podcast discussing Ipswich Town up or down since 2015. I'm Richard Woodard and this is the Prematch Show brought to you in partnership with our friends at the Greyhound Pub. You can catch us every week live on YouTube or after the fact on podcast audio. Tonight we are live. We want to hear from you in the chat, but we will be mainly hearing from my good friend Sebastian Brown. How are you, Seb?
I'm all right. Did you not get the research, the memo? You're doing the research this week. I've done nothing. So if you're expecting me to talk, we're in trouble.
Then.
No, I'm good. Isn't
Hello,
it great
YouTube ad revenue, by the way. I've just written that straight away.
Isn't it great being an Ipswich Town fan at the moment? It's brilliant, isn't it? You know, we sat here a week ago and we're now top of the league, and it's great. I can join in conversations at my workplace with kind of a bit of credibility for the first time since I joined the company. You know, they're Liverpool fans and Man City fans talking about success, and in the old days, I was, 2 leagues down and not to be spoken to. But now I can kind of join in a little bit. It's brilliant being a Town fan, isn't it?
Yeah, and early on the ITFC highlights, and I have to say, it's not as good this season. Last week's had like 10 minutes of Tom Brady, didn't it? It was
it was about 15 minutes, wasn't it? A complete waste with no insight whatsoever. Yeah, I missed the old format very much so.
But yeah, as you say, it's a good time. I mean, a lot of probably the consternation at the moment is transfer window related. That may come up later on. Give us your thoughts maybe about that. Shout out to our mate Jacob and Ben, who did a video that went out on Tuesday night, I think it was, profiling some left centre back targets. So give that a look. We'll put that at the end of the video as the video to watch next. But yeah, we might do another one about strikers. The window slams shut in a few weeks, doesn't it, Seb? But it's gone ominously quiet, hasn't it?
It has, but as the guys spoke about on a couple of flagships a couple of weeks ago, Joe, Craig and Ben were saying, you get that lull, then it dies right off while the Premier League squads kind of settle down a little bit and they have to kind of take their own stock and work out who's going to figure and who's not going to figure. And then probably when is this? It would be the 31st of August, won't it? So I'd imagine from the bank holiday, Monday bank holiday, from the Tuesday, everything will ramp massively up, won't it, as people start to finalise things before it slams closed until January, and you'll be a happy bunny because no more stupid Sky Sports in their yellow ties and trying to flog a product that in your mind is made up and doesn't really exist.
I saw a clip, and I think it was on Sky, saying, isn't transfer deadline day brilliant for the fans? It's like, no, it's bloody not.
It used to be.
It's brilliant for you and it's brilliant for agents, and everyone else is screwed off by it. So there you go, rant over. We are live. Hello to everyone in the chat. We will get to you straight away. Hello to Bluey. No midweek game has done me in. Has it done QPR in? We will talk about that later on. But thank goodness for the England's women match. Got to bring it home, surely. And he's already got his 2-0 prediction. Evening to you. Evening to Charlie, who's even had the time to correct a typo there. Evening to Philip. Evening to Alex. Philip's gone for a 3-1. We're getting score predictions in later. We will come back to your score predictions later on. Michael down under. I told my Australian boss that we would win 3-1. I assume he meant Lionesses, and he had to make me a cup of English tea as I won the bet. Worst tea ever, I'm sure. Yeah, did he stir it with his finger, Michael? No, don't think about that.
The wrong way round, like the toilet
evening
flush.
To Seabass, evening to FBL. Good evening, table toppers. Evening, Jules. Ipswich till I die. Evening to Mark. Evening to Gary from Italian Blackpool. The Apple version, is it? Of Blackpool there. Lakes tomorrow. Enjoy, Gary. Great to have you with us. Neil's here. Rodders. Nick's here as well. Nick quite rightly pointing out QPR dodgy ground for us over the years. We will talk about that. Mark, Rich loves the Telegram transfer chat, really. Mark, I can't wait till I can reset it back to match day chat and close it for 6 days in the week. If you want to join in transfer nonsense where I check in periodically to make sure people are behaving themselves, 2-week free trial of Telegram and then a subscription thereafter, head to bluemonday.itfc.co.uk and you can chat with the likes of Mark, who's got excellent opinions on all kinds of things, including, I'm sure, football transfers. Evening to Stephen as well. Thank you everyone for joining in. We will be talking substantively about QPR shortly. We'll do a little bit of roundup news-wise. First thing, Seb, congratulations. I've not seen it on social media, and if it hasn't happened on social media, has it really happened? But Mikey was getting married today.
Yeah,
So,
brilliant, isn't it? Yeah, like you say, I don't think the first thing
is
he
he
do
in
is
the
put it
live
on
chat?
social media, though. Is he? How committed is he? Is he dialing in from presumably his evening do to catch up with the latest ITFC news? No, superb. Real congratulations. I think Mikey's back for the Leeds games. Hopefully, we can catch up with him there and find out how it all went. Bless him.
Yeah, we should be knee sliding on the dance floor right now, but obviously we're fully committed here. But congratulations to Mikey and his other half, and yeah, we'll see them very soon, I'm sure. In terms of, before we get, as I said, onto QPR, Worth as an advocate, certainly said I deliberately, given you asked politely at the start of the show, did not ask you about the Lionesses, but I'm super excited about Sunday. Sunday has got the double header of England in the World Cup final against Spain on Sunday morning, and then in the afternoon, 3 p.m. it's been adjusted. ITFC women begin their season away at Cardiff, newly promoted Cardiff. A few injury issues for Joe Sheehan. Blue Wilson still a little bit time away. Eloise King's got a bit of a back situation, and our own Lucy O'Brien is recovering from a hamstring, and this meant that she's missed some of pre-season, but she should be back soon. So really excited about that. Ruby Doe has joined from Arsenal following the path followed by Freya Godfrey last season from Arsenal on a dual registration. Quite young, but played for Watford last season. So things in a really good position. Some new recruits, very young team. I'm sure more deals to get done. There are still a little bit of gaps here and there in the squad, but really excited to see ITFC women commence their season. If you want to get involved in that, head to at ITFC WOSC, the women's official sports club. Will give you more information if you're getting into women's football and want to understand more, or give me a shout on Twitter at Ipswich. I'm sure I can point you in the direction. But yeah, first home game for the women is next weekend against Billericay in the determining round of the FA Women's National League Cup. So we'll be back at the AGL then. So that's worth keeping a look out for. Let's head over to QPR. Before we get too far though, Seb, and I've written this in big letters so I don't forget to say it. Thank you so much. If you are an opposition supporter here on our channel, we deliberately try to make sure this is as even-handed and respectful as we can do. But we always appreciate opposition supporters giving us their insights, even if we go a little bit wrong, correcting us as well. We triggered some Stoke fans last week, it's fair to say, Seb, absolutely inadvertently. And I think perhaps people were getting triggered because they wanted to be triggered. So hello, QPR fans. If you're here, thank you so much for watching. We are Ipswich Town fans, just to be clear. We've done so much research, but we can only do so much. And therefore, you know your club better than we do. Please give us a break. If we've gone wrong, enlighten us in the comments. If you're in the live chat as well, we'd love to hear from you as well. But please do it courteously. We were told in no uncertain terms, Seb, that we should do more homework, and we were raking up old graves about Stoke, weren't we?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think we did it that much, to be honest. We referred to the old land of the Giants and the long balls occasionally, but I think the takeaway was that, those kind of days were, that they were moving on from those days, and the exciting players like Vidigal made it kind of a different new proposition. But for whatever reason, yes, we did trigger some fans, so we do apologise for that. Like you said, they will always know their football clubs better than we do. We do the research, and we do use stats, it's worth pointing out, to back up the research. And yeah, sometimes we will maybe get things wrong, or maybe not have the kind of hand on things that you guys have. So please just update us and let us know. And yeah, to be fair, we must say, for every triggered Stoke fan, there was a Stoke fan who was very complimentary about the research and stuff. So I think we got it just about right. But yeah, any QPR fans, feel free to go easy on us this week.
Yeah, and if you're an Ipswich, if you're in the majority and a Town fan, what Seb and I say is 100% accurate, and you don't need to double check it and research it. We are always correct and spot on. Let's talk about QPR then, Seb, because the reason for that caveat is now going to become clear, because the narrative around QPR is what the hell's going on, really. Obviously, a championship staple for quite a while. Similar situation to us, really.
Yeah.
A few years in the Premier League, obviously, spent quite a lot to do that, but had success, and it's something that we've not experienced in 20 odd years. But nevertheless, there's a situation now where everything seems to be unraveling a bit. We'll talk about the managerial situation. We'll talk about the off-field situation. But on the field, last season, definitely there were some question marks and things coming up, and the appointment of Ainsworth didn't really change anything. We'll talk obviously about him, someone we know quite well from Wycombe and our spell in League One as well. But finished last season 20th on 50.6 points above the relegation zone. Home form pretty lousy as well, 23rd in the home form table, Seb. Talk to us about this end of the season run, and we'll, as I said, we'll talk about the managerial situation, but tell us about this run from the 17th of December, as I put it here, or Boxing Day onwards, because it was pretty shambolic, wasn't it?
It is, yeah. Like you said, things are starting to unravel a little bit. Go easy on us, QPR fans. Things are starting to unravel, and it's kind of all going wrong at the same time. So last season, like you said, they mentioned they beat Preston away on the 17th of December, and they're doing okay. And then they go on this run of 2 wins, 7 draws, and 11 losses. Now, Gareth Ainsworth is appointed. He's a club legend. Also, he's been there for, I think it was 7-8 years. Had a couple of caretaker spells in looking after the club, and he cannot influence any kind of real form. And they managed to stay up, like you say, finish on 20th on 50 points, 6 points clear of relegation. But that pretty much only happens because they beat Burnley, who were pretty much hungover. Imagine us at Fleetwood times 10. They were hungover following their promotion. They beat Stoke as well. So they won 2 out of the last 3 games of the season to kind of get themselves across the line. And then I guess if they were hoping for a summer reset, or looking to really kind of push on this year, it just simply hasn't happened with some various off-field issues and stuff. So the back end of last season was pretty much disastrous for them. We've moaned in the past about the lack of a new manager bounce when Lambert came in, when Paul Cook came in. McKenna's completely different, but those 2 guys, we saw absolutely nothing in terms of on-pitch improvements. And it's fair to say that's exactly what they experienced last year when Ainsworth came in, and it was only those 2 wins in the last 3 that really got them across the line and stopped them falling into League One.
Yeah, there's a 6-1 defeat to relegated or to be relegated Blackpool with Mick McCarthy in charge. That jumped out to me as a pretty alarming situation there. But as you say, able to get those back-to-back wins, one against On the Beach Burnley, would you say?
Still in the nightclub, Burnley. Still at the bar, Burnley, I think. And then Stoke, I think Stoke, we did Stoke last week. I think they lost their last 5.
Careful.
No, that's a fact. I think they lost their last 5 last season. So they weren't in great form either. So it was a kind of a battle of 2 clubs stinking out the place in the penultimate game of last year. Yeah,
so there's already this negative trajectory that we talked about in terms of the end of last season. A lot of it is circumstances that maybe aren't necessarily in their control. There's this managerial merry-go-round last season. Michael Beale is appointed in June last year, and he has a really positive start actually to the season, doesn't he?
Yeah, it does well.
And then he disappears off. Talk to us about the kind of conveyor belt. And there's lots of weird kind of Steven Gerrard Rangers type linkages in there as well. Talk us about the managerial situation last season. We obviously mentioned Ainsworth is the incumbent, but there was some jiggery pokery before him, wasn't there?
Yeah, so it's a mess. So any club that fires 2 managers or loses 2 managers in a season is kind of going to be in trouble. So yeah, he takes over. Michael Beale takes over in the summer of 2022. Does okay. At one point, they're sitting top of the league. He's linked with Wolves when whoever it was left there. I can't remember who it was now. The Portuguese manager left there, but he kind of turned it down in the October time. He was the ex-assistant manager with Steven Gerrard up at Rangers, and they approached him in November. And obviously, he goes back up to Scotland to look after Rangers. And at that point, they were okay. They were 7th. They'd been top of the league. They went 5 games without wins. They did slide down the table to 7th, but I'd imagine, most QPR fans at that point would have been absolutely delighted with being 7th in the league in kind of November time, looking to push on towards the opening of the January window. Neil Critchley comes in. He left. Obviously, he took Blackpool up the year we were down there in the 2020, the COVID season, 2020, 2021. He then made that weird decision to kind of step down and go back to Aston Villa, didn't he? As one of Gerrard's coaching team. Yeah, as one of Steven Gerrard's coaching team. Gerrard gets fired from Villa, which means Critchley's after a job again, and he goes in to replace Michael Beale, and seemed a decent appointment, a very good manager at Blackpool, up and coming, but he simply cannot get them going at all. You're talking Paul Hurst levels of win percentages there. I think he won 1 in 12. So unsurprisingly, they dispense of him pretty quickly. And that's when the phone call goes out to Ainsworth in kind of mid to late February. Just as Wycombe was starting to look okay, if I remember rightly. I think we were a bit concerned about, it was the time when we were thinking we're going to finish 3rd. If Wycombe were to gate crash 6th, that's going to be a horrible playoff semi. So they put the call into him as a former club legend, been there for 7-8 years in the early to sort of early 2000s to 2010, but he cannot effect any change whatsoever. So 3 managers in a 12-month period. One leaves with the worst winning percentage ever. Ainsworth isn't much better. I guess the only person who could kind of hold their head high last season from a managerial point of view was Beale, who did well and moved up to Rangers.
Yeah, so Cardiff has this feeling of Ipswich Town 2018-19 really about it for me. I think FPL has kind of alluded to it here about, is it a surprise there wasn't a big clear out with Ainsworth getting in this type of play? We'll talk about the recruitment in a bit, but it does feel like there's 3 managers worth of, well, certainly at least 2 managers worth of recruitment there.
Probably 4 though. Yeah,
I was going to say it goes further back than that.
Yeah.
Plus, you've got Les Ferdinand, director of football, who I assume has quite an active role in the recruitment as well. So, it's very similar to the situation we had with Mick, then Paul Hurst, then Paul Lambert. It takes a while for a manager to stamp their mark on a squad, and you have to wait for these stupid transfer windows, Seb, to do it. I remember the good old days where you could sign players all season until about February, March time, like we did with Marcus Stewart. But nevertheless, that's the situation. Then this churn of managers, the kind of the home form not being great, and that doesn't bode well with the supporter fan. The fan base is upset because the only time they see their team is they're going to lose. And then off the field, Seb, I'm going to let you talk through this. We'll make sure you caveat this with any legal disclaimers that we need to talk about. But there's some off-field financial stuff as well, isn't there?
Yeah, so obviously, when you appoint Gareth Ainsworth, I guess you kind of expect, like FPL said, you go out in the summer and you recruit players to play how he wants to play the game. We know from our various meetings over the last 3 or 4 years exactly how he wants to play the game. He's going to want experienced centre halves. He's going to want a unit up front, and it's going to be kind of low percentage football where you're going to be scrapping for set pieces and throw-ins and that kind of stuff. The issue they've got is the off-field issues have completely negated any kind of transfer splurge, and they've had to sell assets this summer to kind of, I don't know if it's to bring them in with FFP guidelines, but they've certainly not spent a penny this year and had to move people on. So there's a bit of upheaval sort of at boardroom level. Tony Fernandez, one of the co-owners, sells all his shares in June and decides to move on. He'd been there since, I think it was 2011 or so. So you're talking a very experienced person who moves on. Les Ferdinand, who you previously mentioned, the director of football, been there for 8 years. Club legend as well. Yeah, I think he got a lot of stick though for some of the transfers and some of the managerial appointments.
I hate it when that happens.
He resigns, he moves on. So they lose their kind of, most experienced owner from the last 11 years. They lose their director of football from the last 8 years. And then last March, these 6 months ago, these accounts come out covering the period 2021, 2022, and it's a mess. They lose nearly 25 million quid, which works out at a loss of £475,000 a week. To put it in some context, the year before, they lost 4 million quid. So it's a huge loss year on year. Now, a lot of that is because in the second half of 2020, 2021, they had a really good run under Warburton. Mark Warburton was the manager. They kind of finished just outside the playoffs. They make some big signings, the likes of Charlie Austin and Stefan Johansson. They really look to go for it, and it doesn't work. They don't do any player trading. They don't sell a player, and it's now finally caught up with them. And that's why they are unable now to go out and bring in the kind of players and pay maybe some fees for the kind of players that Ainsworth would like to get this squad molded in his own image. And their hands are just completely hamstrung by these, previous kind of financial dealings and stuff. So you've got the on-field issues where Ainsworth is really struggling to get his methods across. You've got an unhappy home base given the poor home form last season, and you've got upheaval at sort of boardroom level with the director of football moving on and the co-owner moving on. So it's a perfect storm. You used the phrase unraveling at the start of the show, and that seems to be what's happening. Every area of the club at the moment is kind of unraveling.
Not a happy home life. It was just, you set that up, Seb. I had to do it. And yet football doesn't stop. So we're on the kind of the new season, the churn, the Saturday, Tuesday, or Wednesday in QPR's in a case doesn't stop. And, realistically, we were expecting them to struggle because of all of this stuff, wasn't it? And 16th is probably a fair expectation. 2 games in, we can't read a huge amount into that. Absolutely battered opening day, 4-0 down at halftime against Watford. And
was it 1-0 after 30 seconds or something?
Crazy, wasn't it? Yeah. But they arrested. We'll talk more about this kind of Cardiff win last week in a bit more detail and how it relates to how Ainsworth might set them up and certain key players as well shortly. So I guess there's a win on the board for Ainsworth, which was something that he struggled when he joined the club. And we're always going to kind of give you guys the overview of the situation when Ipswich Town rock up. Overall, our record, as with all the teams, Sunderland and Stoke we've played, is pretty even, isn't it? 30 wins each and 19 draws. But Seb, the record that we have there, particularly of late and at Loftus Road, is not much to write home about, is it?
But our record at Sunderland was crap as well, and let's be honest. So it doesn't hold that much fear as it perhaps one do. Yeah,
there's a big gap, isn't there? There's like 4 years. Yeah, isn't there? A lot has changed.
Yeah, I mean, we've both won. We've met kind of 79 times. We've both won 30 each and drawn 19 games. We've not beat them in the last 5 games, home and away. Our last win was in February 2010. We won 2-1. David Norris and Daryl Murphy scored the goals. Last week, I threw a team selection at you from the relegation season. Can you name? Let's say, well, you got 2 names there. Can you name another 5 from the starting 11 that night?
No, probably not. 2010.
Yeah, so it's Roy Keane's first season. Yeah, he was the keeper. Yeah,
was he? There you go. I'm trying to remember the team that got tonked by Norwich. Was Damien Delaney at centre back?
Yep.
Ex-QPR, obviously. Or went on to QPR, didn't he? Or no?
Yeah.
Palace. Ex-QPR he was. Wow. Macaulay?
Yep. Well, you're doing better than I thought you would.
Was there a loanee
one player is involved still?
Andre Dazelle? No,
obviously not. He'd have been 7.
One player is still involved at Ipswich, or
no, at the other end of QPR. But he played for Ipswich.
Yeah. I'm trying to think now. I've help me out in the chat, folks. We've got Jamie Peters offered up by Charlie
he was
D.
the right back. Yep.
Nice. Colback.
There he is. It looks like he played left back for us on the evening. So you've got the defence. Norris you've already got from centre mid.
Yeah,
it was a 4-3-3 if that helps. So you need 2 more central midfielders, and then you've got Daryl Murphy, so you need the other 2 attacking players.
Was Murphy on loan? I guess he probably was at that point.
Yeah, I think so. One of his many perennial loans.
I'm going to need more clues, unless folk in the chat need to help me out here. People on the listening on the podcast, it's like 2 Little Ducks, isn't it? Or the olden days when we had games. It's like, you're so stupid, Rich. Chopra, someone says. Charlie says Chopra. Walters, FPL.
Yes, he was the right side of the front 3. So Murphy was the left side. Walters was the front side. So I put you out of your misery.
Yeah.
Pablo was the central striker. Pablo was central striker, and the other midfielders were Leadbitter and Owen Garvin.
I've put this era out of my head.
Well, do you know what? When we win that game, we move on. This is late February, I think it was. We move on to 33 points. We were in the relegation zone before kickoff. That's how bad that season was. Roy Keane was appointed 9 months.
October, didn't we?
Yeah, Roy Keane was appointed 9 months earlier, and we were all so excited, and it all went horribly wrong. So it was quite an important victory at the time.
Geo effect. The reason I keep talking about the kind of narrative around our 2018-19 team is because I wanted to remind you of, well, you've put it in the script and I've supplemented it. Our last match between Town and QPR was a 3-0 QPR win on Boxing Day in 2018. But were you at Portman Road in October when they beat us 2-0? That was a real low ebb. Gherkin let a corner go loop under the bar and in.
Was that after an international break? I think
possibly. I think we
just
drew with
beaten Norwich.
I think we'd just beaten Swansea actually.
That's it. Yeah, sorry, you're right. Yeah, I think it was after international break, and we were kind of excited to see what we might see different, and that was the end result.
That was the turd that Paul Hurst served up for us. So Gherkin let a corner in, and Nsiala fouled. Eze was playing for them at the time to concede a penalty, but Loft for Words, who have definitely recommend checking out Loft Words.
They're brilliant.
Site.
Yeah,
they quoted. Here's some quotes. Ipswich were described as the eye-poppingly abysmal standard of the opposition, and Toto's situation with the penalty. Poor Toto. He's much better. He's improved, isn't he, since these days? But with Toto Nsiala at centre back for the hosts, looking like he could be confused for hours by somebody waving a shiny piece of paper around, I reckon Rangers could have picked anybody out of the crowd and caused Ipswich problems. He's got a touch like my shed. So that takes you back to the last time we played QPR where they doubled us. But things are more positive now. Let's talk about this Cardiff. I've threatened to talk about this Cardiff win last week. There's some mitigating circumstances with the goals, perhaps, but some really good things that Ainsworth can take out of this game that bodes well for Saturday, isn't there, Seb?
Yeah, massive, crucial win for them, wasn't it? Obviously, it comes off the back of the hammering by Watford on the first day of the season, and Ainsworth comes out after the game, first day of the season, and he's already talking about safety and it's going to be a struggle, and we've had heated discussions in the dressing room, that kind of stuff. So beating Cardiff was a huge result for them. I wouldn't necessarily describe it as a smash and grab, having watched all of the kind of the goals back and stuff, but they certainly rode their luck at times. It was very poor defending for both goals that QPR managed to score. Aaron Ramsey is robbed in possession for one of them, and Paul Smythe, the right fullback, kind of squares for Sinclair Armstrong, who we'll discuss a little bit later on. We go through their threats to kind of tap home his first goal, and then Cardiff do hit the bar a couple of times, and QPR walk away with 35% possession. So poor defending for the second goal as well. A centre half commits on Armstrong, and he just doesn't make the tackle. Armstrong's through and can pull the ball back to the left back, who's in acres of space to fire home. So the XG, the possession, the shots were all in Cardiff's favour. But as Mick always used to say, the numbers in the top corner of the screen are more important than the statistics. So that's a big win for Ainsworth, and it came off the back of a change as well of formation, which we'll discuss as well. He kind of held his hands up after Watford, said to the fans, "That's completely on me. I set us up to do a job against Watford, and it went completely wrong." So he kind of moved away from that maybe more traditional Gareth Ainsworth, Wickham, direct long ball side that we know, and tried to evolve things a little bit against Cardiff with a formation change and trying to get some more kind of creative players on the ball and doing certain things tactically, and it kind of reaped the rewards for them.
Yeah, maybe a little bit more direct, and definitely trying to find that threat out wide, isn't there? We'll talk about, as you said, about Sinclair Armstrong shortly. A few really good comments here. Philip Blundell, Cardiff tipped to struggle too. So battle of the basement that QPR won. I guess we shouldn't read, it's not as if they beat a Leicester or a Southampton, but, those are the kind of wins that you desperately need, those kind of 6 pointers early doors, with everyone expecting Cardiff maybe to struggle. So that's a fair point. And as Mark says, very Ainsworthy win. I think they're starting to see that. We were expecting, can Ainsworth stamp his way on this team? It's very difficult, but it feels like things may be starting to click into gear. Obviously, midweek, and this is a kind of a consumer advice for anyone travelling to the game and attending on Saturday. Do make sure your jabs are up to date. Norwich were in town on Wednesday. I don't know whether they disinfected the seats or what have you, so just be careful about that. But Norwich ran out late 1-0 winners in a League Cup, delayed League Cup tie. I think QPR.
They've had a pitch renovation. They were away the first two league games of the season, away to Watford, away to Cardiff, because they've had a pitch renovation. That's why it was delayed from last week, and that's why this is their first home game of the season.
Yeah. So a slight tweak of the formation. I think a lot of people were debating, was it a 3-4-3? To me, it looked like a back five.
Yeah.
And what's more, you had Andre Dizel, who was one of four players who made it from the Cardiff team, who was sitting very deep as well. So kind of Andre Dizel in the kind of quarterback role, if you want, and spraying those passes that we know he's capable of as well. But it looked like a pretty tepid game, didn't it? Albeit I think Norwich probably had the better of the stats, didn't they, Seb? And maybe the 1-0 win probably justified, perhaps.
I think so, yeah. When I watched the highlights of it earlier, I mean, some of the chances in the first couple of minutes of the highlights were, I was thinking, if this is the quality you're showing, it can't have been a very good game at all. Like you say, used it for kind of squad rotation. Only 4 of the team that started against Cardiff came in, so it will revert back to type for us visiting there on Saturday. But he stuck with this kind of 5/3 at the back, in and out of possession. And the big feature last night was the loss, obviously, of Dykes, Landon Dykes. He'd been kind of playing we know him as a kind of a powerful out-and-out striker. And when they were in possession against Cardiff, he was pushed right up alongside Sinclair Armstrong. And then out of position, he would kind of drop almost into do you remember when Johnny Walters would play on the right-hand side and we would launch the ball on a diagonal for him to kind of flick it on to the fullback getting in advance, or the strikers? He kind of played that role, but he went off last night. Ainsworth was positive after the game, saying he might have a chance for Saturday, but it looked an awful challenge and a bad injury. So I'd be amazed if he featured against us at the weekend. Yeah,
and there's a few players, particularly in centre back, we'll talk about that, who are injured as well. So that's the kind of situation, folks. We can talk very briefly about Gareth Ainsworth. Rod is saying, did the keeper go off for concussion as well? Not sure whether there was obviously a lot of young players brought in, and as HCA's, I think he said 4 debuts. There you go.
Yeah, they ended with 4 debuts.
A lot of young players, and that's the great thing about QPR. I know Les Ferdinand's going to be much maligned, but there's always the conveyor belt of young talent that comes through there. So that was a positive. Obviously, Sinclair Armstrong, I know, is recruited from the Irish League, but they've nurtured him as well. So that's something that QPR do really well. Let's talk about Gareth Ainsworth very briefly, Seb, because someone that Ipswich Town fans know very well.
Yeah.
him and McKenna was a very interesting situation, both with a win each against each other, a 1-0 win at that as well. I think it was.
Yeah.
In terms of his stats at QPR, we kind of talked through that. I don't think we need to give it much. But is Gareth? Here's a question for you: is Gareth Ainsworth maybe unfairly maligned as maybe a long ball or a rough and tumble type tactician? Whenever I've heard him as a pundit on Sky Sports, I think he's quite astute, and maybe there's a little bit of cutting your cloth accordingly kind of thing.
Yeah.
I know QPR is a very different situation with the resources, but at Wycombe, obviously punched well above their weight, didn't they, in terms of the rest of the division? And he's to be respected, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, as a pundit, he always comes across as tactically astute and quite eloquent. And we've seen the videos where he's described as an excellent kind of manager. I think at Wycombe, he just simply played the hand he was dealt. He had no money there pretty much whatsoever. It worked for them, managed to get them up into the Championship, obviously, and just about they got relegated, but they put up a decent fist of it. And I guess at QPR, if a club that you've been at for a certain amount of time rings you up to go and rescue them, and they're a division above, you probably do move there looking to kind of influence something, and he probably thought he could go in there and influence some change and see them across the line before a rebuilding job in the summer. But with the financial issues they've got, he's not going to be backed in terms of spending money, so he has to again work with what he's got. And they've got a few flair players. We saw at Wycombe he kind of built the side around Mehmeti for the first half of last season before he went off to Bristol City, so he doesn't mind having a flair player in there. But the vast majority of the side are going to be pragmatic, hard-working. They're going to play low-percentage football. It's going to be throw-ins. The ball's going to be in play for less than any other time of the season. They're going to be in your face and aggressive, and it's generally not going to be a nice game of football to watch.
Yeah, and Marcus said here, Ainsworth almost offensively positive about a home defeat and a potential injury to a key player. There's also a bit of charisma. It's not going to be everyone's cup of tea, is it? Let's be honest. But that is important. I think some of the social media content QPR put out when he joined looked a bit. There was a hacker and stuff, wasn't there? And
it didn't. Yeah,
a little bit cheese. Perhaps.
Yeah, it didn't really come across. He brought them in to try and inspire the players, and I think that weekend they went out and promptly lost again, so it didn't work. But by all accounts, we did the 1-24 with Gab. I think we both predicted them for the bottom three, being relegated this season. Gab said he was he was an excellent man, motivator, but you and me on the bottle. You and I hate you so much. You and me just couldn't really see where he was going to be able to be backed to get his kind of points across, and that's exactly how it's turned out. And with a few days, we've got 10 days now at the end of the window. They're not going to go out and spend anything, so he's going to have to work with what he's got. The worry is they lose some of those flair players. We'll come on to in a minute, and that makes the job even harder, doesn't it?
Yeah, look it up in your cone track. Let's look at the key arrivals then, because there's definitely Charlie D. You're a dosser and a dwat. You just went very American all of a sudden, Seb. So, I know you've been on holiday there, so we have to give him a pass, folks. He's still reacclimatizing. It's 2032 on Thursday, the 17th of August. Anyway, signing, Seb, all very much of a similar kind of nature. Two names that I'd pick out for you. Not that you need him. We already talked about Jack Colback, utility player, obviously a lot of experience. That's a good signing, albeit probably going to take some time to get up to speed. Steve Cook, signed from Forest. Yeah. Really important they get that defensive organisation, and he's a really big signing. But there's a lot of names. There's another exit ITFC name in there as well, isn't there? Talk us through that and the departures, and then we'll talk about Chair and Willock.
Yeah, so it's all freeze this summer, not spent a penny. So Asmir Begovic, the ex-ITFC loanee for, it must have been that same season as the QPR victory we discussed a few minutes ago. Did he play half a dozen games for us? We had Richard Wright, we had Asmir Begovic, and we had Brian Murphy, I think, at one point in that season. So
he also played for QPR, as we were told early in the chat.
Yes. He went there from Everton on a free transfer, 36-year-olds, now ridiculous amount of experience, nearly 250 Premier League appearances. Morgan Fox joined from Stoke, centre-back. Steve Cook, the one you mentioned, obviously ex-Bournemouth and ex-Nottingham Forest, hasn't really played. I think he was left out of Forest's squad in the second half of last season because they went out and signed 92 players. So hasn't really featured, but brings a wealth of experience at this level from his time at Bournemouth and getting Forest over the line. Jack Colback, utility player, like you say, he won't be featuring. Paul Smythe is kind of a right winger who's been repurposed as a right wing back in this new 3 at the back formation. He's coming from Leyton Orient. And that would kind of seem to be a bit of decent business. You're getting an up and comer from the lower leagues, apart from the fact that QPR released him 2 years ago. So 2 years ago they let him go, and they've had to bring him back in. And they're the kind of the headline arrivals. So it's experience, it's not cost anything. And I guess if you think of a Gareth Ainsworth side, you're going to think of the likes of Morgan Fox, Steve Cook, Jack Colback being very committed in central midfield. It kind of reeks of him trying to influence his way on the team. And the departures, like we said earlier, they've had to bring in some money. So Seny Diang, the goalkeeper's gone to Borough for a couple of million quid. Rob Dickey, a centre back's gone to Bristol City for about 700 grand or so. They've lost some experience. Chris Martin, Stefan Johansson, Leon Balogun, they've all kind of departed and moved on. And I guess their two only really sellable assets are Elias Chair and Chris Willock. Chair's kind of featured in both games so far this season, linked with the Premier League in recent years and linked with Leicester as recently as James Maddison moving on, but is still there at the moment. And Willock's kind of had this, there's a kind of, if you go on the Loft for Words kind of forums and stuff, they're not really sure what's going on with Willock. I think he might have said he wants to move on in the past, and he's barely featured so far this season. And it's a Paul Lambert, it's a sore one in training. There's no real in-depth kind of knowledge about the issues with him, but he might well come back in and feature this weekend, given Dykes is probably going to be out.
Yeah, I think of the two, they'd let Willock go, wouldn't they, to try and keep Chair. So we shall see, but money talks, doesn't it? Let's talk about the existing squad. We've kind of dealt with the strategy, the tactics. I think at this stage it's probably more about the style of play rather than the formation that he can deploy. Obviously, we've mentioned 4-2-3-1 against Watford, 5-4-1/3-5-2, and then a 3-4-3 midweek. So I don't think there's a huge amount we can read into it. Obviously, defensive absentees might legislate a back two perhaps rather than a back three, but I think it's probably more useful for us to talk about the players who are there. We've talked about Shea, we talked about Willock, Begovic, Smythe. Talk to me about Sinclair Armstrong. Give us a bit more details on him. Youngster, just breaking through, really, maybe a little bit raw, but obviously made a big impression last week.
He did, yeah. So he's got a goal and an assist against Cardiff, scored the opening goal and got the assist for the second goal. They recruited him 3 years ago, summer of 2020, from Shamrock Rovers. He's kind of had loan spells out at Aldershot and Torquay in the National League, kind of learning his trade and stuff. And this season he's got his chance, and he has taken it so far. He kind of plays as the focal striker. I think it'll be a back three again, and I think they'll play Smythe as the right wing back to stay high and wide to keep Davis pushed back, which means that Armstrong is going to be the focal point in that formation. It's going to be up to him to hold the ball up. He's a bit of a fan favourite, a bit of a cult hero, but Loft for Words did describe him as being much better when it's purely instinctive. If he has to think about it, apparently he's got a bit of a problem. So he's by far at his best where he can be reactive in the box and kind of land on things and look to get shots off quickly. If he's through one-on-one and takes his time, that's when he starts to struggle a little bit.
Yeah, 20-year-old strikers tend to do that. I mean, great story. He scored obviously his first goal last week and gave the shirt to a fan at full time, who then made contact with him during the week to offer the shirt back because it was burst. And then Armstrong said, "No, you keep it." And the exchange was put up on Twitter for everyone to see. So obviously a good attitude there as well. So we like those kind of players, don't we, at our club? So good on him for that. Do you want to talk to us about Andre Dizelle, Seb? Because again, maybe a name that's going to divide people, but certainly from my perspective, inherently a very intelligent footballer, able to spot things and deploy things and execute passes that a lot of players can't. But it's that consistency maybe that's the question mark.
It is, yeah. I mean, he left us 2 summers ago now. So 2021, he moves on. He's only made 37 starts in the last 2 years for QPR. No goals, 1 assist. I can't comment if his corner taking has improved at all. And I guess I worry for him a little bit because he's not going to be a Gareth Ainsworth type of central midfielder, is he? I assume when Jack Colback is fit, he'll play Sam Field and Jack Colback in midfield. And I just wonder where Dizelle kind of finds himself at that point. He's not really pushed on or kicked on since he went there. And I just worry with that kind of manager, a kind of, classy ball playing central midfielder who likes to drop deep and thread the eye of the needle past the strikers isn't going to be what Ainsworth wants. So I would worry about him moving forward.
Yeah, he's certainly divided opinion at QPR, and our friends at Loft for Words have had a lot of things to say about Andre Dizelle as well. Not all positive, but it's a shame really. It doesn't feel like it's necessarily a fit there, but it's not like I'm saying sign him back here, but it's a shame when a player who's it's just instinct, isn't it? It's, being able to spot a pass and thread it through is kind of is foresight, isn't it? And it's you could say it's DNA, isn't it, from his dad? But at this level, you need to do more than that, don't you? And you need to goal contributions for a midfielder need to be much bigger. And if you're not going to make goal contributions, then you need to be more physical and you need to be breaking up play and getting in the opposition's face. And it doesn't feel like on either of those counts he's contributing enough, perhaps.
That's what I was about to say. Yeah, we've seen with Morsey and Luongo the importance of that physicality in central midfield to really win that battle and then allow your kind of wide players and attacking players and flair players to do their thing. And he just simply hasn't got that level of physicality in his game, has he? I think he could certainly do a job for a more kind of a ball playing manager who wants to maybe look to build the side around him in midfield and look to use his range of passing, a bit like Lee Evans can spray those balls out wide and stuff. Dazzel's got that in his locker, but under Ainsworth that's not going to happen. And probably, if we're being brutally honest, not a championship level either. You might have to take a step back a little bit when it's. I'm not sure. I think it was a 3-year deal he signed. So I think he's going into the last year of his contract, and I'd be amazed if he was still there last year, especially if Ainsworth is still there.
Yeah, a lot of debate in the chat about formation. I mean, I think a back three seems to be the way to go.
I think it will be, given the people that are missing.
I was reading a really interesting, it was by a QPR analyst account, I think on Twitter, that sort of Lee Carsley did this a lot for the England under 20s in the World Cup, that positions don't really matter. And I think Ainsworth, having looked at the player position map for the Cardiff and the Norwich game, there's a lot of spread here. So, I'm going to stick with it. I might be wrong here that, the formation might be important at kickoff, but obviously a defender's going to play in defence, but similarly, I think there will be some fluidity there, and it'll be interesting, get your thoughts on how does Ainsworth approach this. I know that Ben and Sam Parkin were talking about this just before on Ben's show. If you're Ainsworth, do you destroy or do you try and come up with a strategy to get around Kieran McKenna's team? And obviously, the last 2 matches in the league, we've had less possession than the opposition. It'll be interesting to see whether that stat reverses. Seb, do you want to give us your final insights? There's some players missing. I think we've dealt with most of that, haven't we? Anyone?
We have, yeah. They've got a few. They've got a couple of injuries. That's why they've brought in the players at the back during the week. So Jack Colback's not ready to start after barely featuring for Forest since about sort of late March time. Jimmy Dunn, they lost 5-0 in their last pre-season game to Oxford, didn't they? In pre-season, got thrashed by Oxford. He got injured. He's not featured since. Jake Clark-Salter is still injured. So it's not a big squad, and they are kind of down to the bare bones at the back already. Any more you want to say on QPR? We talked about them for quite some time now, haven't we? So yeah, no, just some of the stats. We've kind of less on stats this season, but the stats are pretty damning, albeit with the caveat we're only 2 games into the season. So their 32% possession is 22nd in the league so far. Their passing accuracy is rubbish, 65%, which is 23rd in the league. 5 shots per game is bottom of the league. They've conceded 19 shots in the first 2 games, which is the second highest in the league. They're not tackling enough. Only 11 tackles per game is 23rd. And their 79 long balls per game is the second highest, and they are 21st for short passing. So although Ainsworth might be trying to change things, the stats would suggest that we can expect very much some of the old Wickham-style football at the weekend.
And if you're a QPR fan who's watching this show after the fact, yes, we are aware that is a 2-game sample size. So we're not reading a huge amount into those stats, but it gives you an indication nevertheless. We've already got some thoughts on how Ipswich might line up for this one. Obviously not a huge amount of debate here, but give your thoughts on that and anything else Ipswich Town related. We've got plenty of time for a bit of Q&A if you want to give that or some perspectives. We'll do predictions later on as well, but I mean, it's very difficult to change a team that's top of the league, isn't it, Seb?
You don't change it, do you? I know Clark's back and available. Donasian's done the pre-match presser.
I don't know who to believe.
Are you saying McKenna's playing mind games?
I don't know.
Think he said he's available for selection. Didn't say he would start. I don't think he will start. I don't think you change the side, do you? You play the same side as Sunderland and Stoke. Clacky obviously with keeper, and Donasian's done really well, I think, in the first 2 games. And yeah, if Chair plays on the left of the 3 behind the kind of the central striker, then I think I'd be happy with Donasian at right full back, right wing back. He's a great one-on-one defender, and he can occupy him quite easily, I think. And just you don't change a winning side. Nothing will change. Nope. I don't think from our point of view. Clark might come back onto the bench, maybe. Edmondson might come back onto the bench if he's training well again, but you certainly don't change the starting 11 unless you're forced to.
And how do you see the game panning out? That's the key question. I know it's difficult to answer that one, Seb. As I said, we've not had the lion's share of the possession in either of the 2 games we've had. Obviously, more against Stoke, away team as well. What are you expecting a game similar to Sunderland, or is this going to be an entirely different experience?
No, this will be the first. Yeah, this will be the first time this season we've had more possession than the opposition, isn't it? You know, we
Okay.
didn't have. I was surprised against Stoke, but surely on the weekend we'll have the lion's share of possession. Ainsworth sides do not do possession, do they? You know, he's got to kind of work out, like you said earlier with Ben and Sam Parkin talking about it. What does he do? Does he look to disrupt us as he has done for Wickham in the past quite effectively? You know, that game when we lost just before, was it the weekend before Christmas? Was that probably our worst performance of last season?
Yeah,
I would suggest.
with absolute dominance on the stats, which I know people get pissed off about, but in every other metric apart from the scoreline, we bossed that game, didn't we?
Yeah, and they
And
didn't have
that's
to
some
do
really
much.
unfortunate moments too.
They didn't have to do much to score the goal, did they? It was just strong against strong against the fullback, strong against Burgess. So he has had success doing that kind of stuff in the past. Does he maybe look to kind of, you know, appease the fans, and if they can put in a gritty kind of performance, even if they were to go down 1-0, a bit like last night, if they can put in a gritty performance and show signs of encouragement, he can then obviously come out after the game and say he's proud like he did last night, and it kind of gives him a little bit more credibility. He certainly won't look to take us on, because if he does that, you know, we'll take them to the cleaners. So I think it'll be more of the Wickham style: disrupt, destroy, you know, keep the ball in play for as little as you can, kind of look to really get in our faces and be aggressive, because he's got a track record of doing that against us, and it has worked in the past.
Might still be fun though, so you never know. Some questions. Louis, hello to you. I'm a tad worried our good start has hidden our depth issues. If Hurst and Burgess get injured, I think we're in trouble. Is this a shared view?
I think so. I think if you ask ITFC fans right now, where do we need to strengthen positions, they would all say attacking options and a centre-back, preferably a left-sided one. We know they've gone out and tried to get left-sided centre-backs with McNally going to Stoke, so it's an area they want to improve upon. The drop-off down, I guess, from Burgess to Edmondson and from Hurst to Ladapo would be considerable, but we've still got nearly 2 weeks of the window left now, so there's no reason why we can't expect some business to still occur. But you could say that about anywhere on the pitch. You know, if we lost Connor Chaplin, that would be a bit of a drop off if Marcus Harness were to come in. We have an exceptional first 11. We still have a strong squad. It just needs a little bit of fine tuning in a couple of areas, I think.
Okay. Mark asked us about Clark coming straight back in. I think we've answered that. You're expecting unchanged, are you?
I would think so. Why would you change it? You wouldn't, would you? Clark, if he's being managed, I'd be amazed if he were to start the game. Danastian's done the pre-match presser, unless he's going to play some mind games, like you said, and really look to kind of fool Ainsworth and bring Clark straight back in. I'd expect Clark maybe to be on the bench, maybe get a run out if we're doing okay, and look to start him against Reading in a few weeks' time.
Yeah, there you go. Skip agreeing with you there. What else have we got? Yeah, interesting. Who's going out from the club? McKenna is saying outs as well as ins, asks HGH. Edwards, we know. Baggett, Humphreys on loan, but anyone else?
Well, we know obviously Humphreys and Baggett are the two. Edwards is the one, isn't it, who we know about? And I guess we've still got this raft of central midfielders, haven't we? Would you be that surprised if a Lee Evans were to move on just before the window closes? You know, if you look at our central midfield positions, you're playing for two positions. You've got Morsey and Luongo kind of nailed on at the moment. Then you've got Claire Taylor, who you've spent 1.5 million quid on. Dominic Ball's very experienced there, ex QPR obviously. Humphreys, Evans. It's an area we are overstocked in. So if you need to do something for financial fair play reasons with the wage bill, and if you need to do something with regards to squad limits, that is the obvious area you might look to move somebody out.
Yeah, a few interesting names here. Chair in next week, as says Rod as HCH with a light Scott Twine. We're debating that in Telegram. I'm not sure where you fit him, but I guess it's kind of that upgrade situation. Yeah. Go on.
I'd have had him as the backup. You know, if Chaplin were to drop off, then you bring Twine straight in, and his goal contributions were phenomenal back down at Swindon. So I'd have definitely taken him. Yeah.
Very specific prediction from Joe. I like this. Can see Jack Taylor getting a goal off the bench. Hopefully a long ranger. I remember Sylvan Legwinski scoring a long ranger, dipping volley. Gavin Williams, I think, has scored one there as well. So we've got some good pedigree of. I think I might have posted this. If I haven't, I'll put it on my Twitter. Paul Mason rocketed one on a Tuesday night game as well against QPR away. Simon, that's Fulham, wasn't it? Yeah, nearly. But yeah, we've got some long ranges at QPR. So that'll be one to look out for perhaps as well. Joe also asked, can you see Raksaki signing on loan now? Crystal Palace has signed Elise to a new contract. I mean, a lot of chat about Raksaki. I think Hodgson's not particularly keen to let him go, but there's about 6 teams in for him in there.
It's been going on forever, hasn't it? It seems like it's come down to between us and Leicester, and I think Hull will link, but now they've got Scott Twine. I presume they'll drop out of the race. I guess, yeah. I mean, Hodgson, he's not going to feature in the Premier League, is he? But if they don't go out and do a bit of business, then potentially they might look to keep him in the building as a bit of an option with the cup games they'll have coming up. I would take him. He plays on the right. You know, he wasn't that great for Charlton against us last April, but none of them were. We absolutely we actually battered them, obviously. And if we can look to bring him in, it'd be one that's done right at the end of the window, possibly on the last day if we can do it. But I guess if you're looking at us and Leicester aren't overly strong in that right hand channel, so he's probably thinking, I've got a chance there to go and get a winner's medal on my CV, so he might maybe opt towards that a little bit. But I guess we've got geography and Kieran McKenna in our favour, so.
We do. Some QPR long ranges coming in. Tom Lawrence, Selena scored about FPL. Darren Curry scored off the bench. My first trip to QPR.
4-2, was it?
Yeah, great game in the season where we should have got promoted. So, yeah, there's some good goals there. And again, if you check my Twitter at Ipswich, I'm sure I've posted that Darren Curry goal before. Let's do some bits of plugs. I nearly said the word that we sometimes use for that. And then we'll get to your score predictions. So please get those in either for the Town game. Well, for the Town game and for anything else that you want in the Championship programme. As always, we're brought to you in partnership with our mates at the Greyhound Pub. Packed it was last weekend at Stoke. So the advice is get there early to get your ITFC Foundation burger. But yeah, do support the Greyhound. Fantastic pre-match venue. As always, we mentioned Telegram a few times with the transfer window slamming shut in a few weeks' time. Perfect time to join the Telegram group. If you're one of the many people who tried and failed to get QPR tickets, then the Blue Monday Telegram Matchday chat is a really good place to go to see what's going on from folk at the game or folk watching from abroad or listening on the radio. I got out of that one, I think. So yeah, plenty going on the Matchday chat and other stuff as well during the week as well. Merch store, usual stuff. But do come back on Sunday. Flagship Show, 8 p.m. We'll talk about QPR, all the match action we will come back and discuss. So do join us live then. Do like and subscribe if you haven't already. But yeah, I think Seb, that's all. Should we do some predictions? Worth noting that we both lost last week to Ed in the Telegram group, so that's as much as I'm going to talk about it. Ed won by 2 points. None of us predicted a correct result, and you and I got 3 outcomes correct, including Ipswich beating Stoke. So, in terms of predictions, not a vintage week for the old predictions, folks. So we'll move it on and save us some time. Let's have a look what we've gone for this week and pick some games out. Worth noting that Ben is doing a live watch along for Leeds v West Brom tomorrow night. So join him on his channel. I don't think you can really describe Plymouth v Southampton as a South Coast derby, but it's kind of a South Coast derby. That's happening on Saturday morning. Leicester v Cardiff, top near bottom. Borough Huddersfield. Borough, really shaky start so far, isn't it? It's going to be interesting to see if they can turn it around against another team that's predicted to struggle. Stoke, Watford will be interesting to see how Stoke get on. Sunderland, another team struggling, have a hashtag winnable game v Rotherham. And then Norwich finish us off the weekend, them lot v Millwall. Any other games apart from ours? We'll finish with ours that you want to talk about there, Seb, if I leave that up on the screen?
Just the interesting that you've gone for Plymouth to beat Southampton. You kind of figure Plymouth's amazing home record will continue and keep lasting a bit, yeah?
I put it to you that Southampton aren't all that. And I think Plymouth at home, I know it's not a long trip for Southampton as much as it is for anyone's, but I quite like Plymouth at home. And I also think I need to do something.
Love me, Plymouth fans. Love me.
Yeah, Plymouth won the league. Don't forget Plymouth won the league. But I just had a feeling about that one. We'll see how I get on next week about that one. But yeah, there you go. Any other controversial picks? I think we generally agree. Other than that,
yeah,
we're going for quite a big win for Southampton there, though. 3-1,
and we've got
defend.
Well, only against Norwich.
Are Norwich good?
I think they're better. They're annoying better than I thought they would be this season so far, which is a bit irritating. I kind of thought they'd be really, really poor, but I think they're better than I maybe thought they would be. We've both gone for Norwich victories on Sunday against Millwall, haven't we? So we're kind of
Sheffield Wednesday. Let's talk about the other prediction. I'm moving us on from Norwich deliberately, so because Jules is going to get upset, and I don't upset Jules. You're predicting a Sheffield Wednesday win against Preston.
Against Preston. Yeah, I think it'll be tight, but I think they'll finally look to get their season up and running there. I just think Hillsborough can be when the crowd's on it and stuff, they need a win because they started the season really, really poorly. Preston are just a bit meh for me. Kind of went there in pre-season. I wasn't impressed with them, so I think Wednesday will get up and running the weekend.
Let's finish on chat about us before we go to everyone in the chat. Your predictions, do get them in now. And we're all like last week. There's a consensus of a narrow, well, at least for you and I, a one-goal victory. I'm predicting that QPR will shit house a goal. There, I said it. Well, Ainsworth a goal out of somewhere. That's
Will it be a set piece
or
a
QPR
long throw
fans. It was so long ago that we did this caveat that we please don't put offensive comments in. But yeah, I think there's a goal for QPR there potentially. But I predicted a clean sheet last week. I was the only one, I think, and you all laughed at me. Well, I got 1 point for that one, like everyone else did. But yeah, you're going for a clean sheet and a narrow away victory.
I think it will be tight. These games between McKenna and Ainsworth have both finished 1 apiece, haven't they? Yeah. We beat them 1-0 in his first game in charge. We lost 1-0 there last December. So they are traditionally tight games. I know we went there not so long ago and battered them 4-1, 4-0. But yeah, I just think it's going to be a tight game. I'm not sure it's going to be the most attractive of games so far compared to what we've been used to recently. But I think we'll go there. I think we'll be solid. I think we'll grind out the victory. And I think we'll still be top of the league come 5 p.m. on Saturday, which will be lovely, won't it?
Put that on your podcast. Obviously, that 4-1 was a Paul Cook win.
Yeah, it wasn't McKenna. And since then, it's been kind of tighter and stuff. And traditionally, that game aside, when the two sides meet, it's never normally a goal fest, is it? Yeah. We had a 0-0, we had a 1-1, we've had 1-0 victories for us, 1-0 victory for them. So it's not a game free-flowing of goals. It'll be 4-4 now. You watch that.
There you go. like Southampton, Norwich. Rushmere asks, quick question, who do you think we could bring in as a striker? I shouted out earlier, but we're likely to do another kind of transfer targets video like we put out earlier in the week for left centre backs. So Rushmere, place I bloody love. We will look at the frontline options, I think, in the next couple of weeks as well, certainly ahead of deadline day. So keep a lookout for that. Let's go have a look at the predictions. FPL going for a 4-2. Rekindling the good old days of 04.
Oh yeah, that's the
2-1 down. Though.
That's the Darren Curry game, isn't it? Wasn't that exactly what happened? I'm sure we were 2-1 down and then
I think they took lead twice, didn't they?
Yeah. Paul Furlong with 2, was it?
Oh yeah, that's blast from the past. Colin's going for a 2-0. Mike's going for a 4-0. Jules 3-1. There you go, Jules. Michael is endorsing that. Chaplin, Wolfie again, and Burns. I like when people show us their work and give us the scores. Rodders 3-0. 2-0 says Skip.
Chaplin. We're all so confident, aren't we? This is brilliant.
2-0. Patrick, hello Patrick. 1-0 Town. Be a hard game because we won't be allowed to play the game we want.
That's what I think. Yeah.
Was with you, and then to contrast that, here's Neil with his 4-1. In there. HCH Town to nick it by the odd goal. Rodders, where's the shirt, Seb?
I've washed it. I washed it after last week because it was match worn and sweaty, and it's now sat somewhere in the bottom of a cupboard until. Why would I frame it?
Frame it probably. Phillips go for a 3-1. Mark go for here we go. Interesting, Mark. I might have a chat with you about Ladapo later on. Jackson. We didn't talk about Caden Jackson's impact last week. He's not in a start, Seb, but is he more likely to feature off the bench, or is it Ladapo's physicality that we might favour?
I think on the weekend you'll want physicality, won't you? Obviously, McKenna was able to spot that, they wanted to stop Wilmot getting on the ball, and Jackson was probably the best presser from the front in the club, so he made the tactical change to bring him on. Surely against an Ainsworth side, they're not going to build from the back, are they? They're going to be ones to the centre-back's just going to launch it. So I think if you were to make a change, Hurst will kind of look to batter them for 60, 70 minutes, and then you want to keep that kind of physicality, I would suggest, up against the centre-back. So I would imagine it would be Ladapo. Jackson's probably more likely to come in on one of the wide positions, given that Kenneth Poll, the left wing back, and Smythe, the right wing back, who is a winger out of position, might leave a bit of space in behind.
There you go. Patrick's gone with even more working for 10 men QPR and Harness with a late goal. We're predicting some impact off the bench. We're just predicting Millwall to beat Norwich. Shabby are working on that one. HCH Hull will turn over Blackburn. Yeah, a lot of positivity about Hull.
Yeah.
We mentioned Scott Twine going there, but big win against Sheffield Wednesday last week. And as HCH mentions, too many incomings at Wednesday will take them time to gel. New manager as well. 3-1, 3-0. Here's Seabass with a 3-0 to Town, as he clarifies. FPL, I think FPL's just changed it. Didn't he say 2-4?
I think he said 4-2, 2-1 down, 4-2 victory.
Come
and now he's changed
on,
it.
FPL. You got to stick with your convictions.
Unless
mate.
maybe he was referring to the Darren Curry game. Maybe it was an old comment from earlier in the chat.
Perhaps. You blaming me for putting the wrong comment up on the screen, are you
Yep.
then? Okay. HCH, no more 4-4s said. My heart won't take it. Yeah. Bad memories of 4-4s. Good shout, HCH. Kev Hansen, when did we last win at the Shoebox? When was it, Seb? Quickly look it up.
February
it was
2010.
Oh, at QPR?
Yeah.
Yeah, I said six visits without a win, wasn't it? Long old trip. Long old trip isn't a long old trip. Long old time since a win. So let's finish with Stevens 3-1. A lot of 3-1s. We will
a lot
out.
of goals in these games and the predictions, aren't there? People think it's going to be quite kind of open and stuff.
We will find out next week. Check in back with us next week and we'll check the results. If you want a shout out or any last questions, now is the time. We'll be back in a second. Any excuse to play the editor's song. That's from the instrumental version for those of you who care.
Nerd!
Me! Do join us back here on Sunday at 8 p.m. on the Flagship Show to go through the game and to discuss it. We very much value your input, your questions. So do join us live in the chat. If you're unable to do that, we'll stick it on the podcast shortly thereafter as well. Thank you, everyone who's joined a very busy chat tonight. Thank you, everyone. Don't forget to pop us a thumbs up. That really helps us out on the old YouTube algorithms that everyone loves us talking about as well. And don't forget to subscribe as well. We're here every single week talking ahead of the game and afterwards as well. Blue Monday, ITFC.co.uk is our website. Yes, we have a website. And on there, you'll find the link to the Telegram group and a link to our merch store and everything else, the pod feeds on various different services, etc., etc. And do join us over on Telegram if you haven't already. There you go. Seb, any last words? I've got to continue my record of signing us out, don't I? So
yeah, you have to do it because we flip it around. No, we flip it around when the results change. So for now, you carry the torch and you can keep going. Thank you for hosting. Thank you for your research. Thank you to everybody. It's a great time to be a Town fan. Hopefully more positivity at the weekend. Leeds is on the horizon next weekend. So I'm sure you and me will be back next week. And yeah, if we triggered Stoke last week, I dread to think what we can do to the Leeds fan base in 7 days' time.
Oh, man. I'm excited
we'll think
about
of
that
something.
Already. Yeah. And if you're a QPR fan, you made it to the end. Good on you, frankly.
Be gentle.
Do let us know in the comments if you've got any more insights. And hopefully we didn't go too far wrong as well. Thank you, everyone, for watching. And we'll see you soon. Come on, you Blues.